Hey everyone, and welcome to AMC Movie Talk for movie fans. I'm your host, Erin Darling, and we are bringing you all the latest movie news with insight into what it all means. And joining us today, as always, is AMC Movie News Editor, John Campia.
Greetings and salutations, everybody. Good morning, Erin. Now, those of you who are regular, you know sometimes I wear these glasses are called, I highly recommend them, by the way. They're called Gunner Optics. And they're actually designed for game players for who sit in front of computer monitors or video game screens for hours and hours and hours. It cuts out a certain type of light that makes your eyes fatigued. And me sitting in front of a computer monitor like 8 to 12 hours a day, I get that a lot. So that's why I wear these glasses. Today, though, they're wearing a dual purpose. I had 1 hour sleep last night. So they're also hiding massive bags under my eyes today. Here's a little bit of trivia for you.
Well, you wouldn't be able to tell. Also joining us today is our very own Dennis Sen. Hi, Dennis.
How's it going, guys? Good morning to you both.
Good morning to you, too. All right, so let's get started. Our first story is about the Bourne franchise. So it looks like the Bourne franchise is headed for a 5th installment. According to reports, Universal Studios has set a new film into motion by hiring Sherlock Holmes and Invictus screenwriter Anthony Peckham to write a new script that will once again focus on the Jeremy Renner character Aaron Cross as opposed to Matt Damon's Jason Bourne character. The last Bourne film, The Bourne Legacy, made just over $276 million at the worldwide box office, pretty much ensuring that the series would continue. So, John, what stands out to you the most about this new Bourne movie?
I think the thing that stands out most is the apparent lack of Matt Damon. Now, because there was a lot of speculation going around about 6 months ago that Matt Damon was considering returning and that you'd have a Bourne movie with both Matt Damon and Jeremy Renner as Jason Bourne and Alex Cross, respectively. And I think that got a lot of us excited. Look, was the last Bourne movie excellent? No, it wasn't excellent. But at the same time, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it wasn't up to the par that I'd come to expect of like a Paul Greengrass, Matt Damon Bourne film. But on its own, just judging it on its own merits, I thought it was a pretty good little film. And the whole idea of seeing Cross and Jason Bourne together, I thought was exciting. It sounds like that's not going to happen now. Matt Damon hasn't made any more overtures about wanting to come back to the series, so that's unfortunate. I'm still excited that they're moving forward with it. I'm curious to see how they continue this story with the Alex Cross character. It just would have been kind of nice to see Matt Damon in the mix too. Dennis, what do you think?
Yeah, I actually enjoyed Bourne Legacy. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but yeah, it wasn't on par with the other Bourne movies with Matt Damon in them. But I still thought it was good, and it made a lot of money, so it's definitely no surprise that they're making a sequel. As far as Matt Damon not being in it, I don't think it's too big of a surprise. I know they talked about it, but it still may happen later down the line, so I wouldn't count it out for in the future, maybe another 2 or 3 movies down the line. But for right now, I think a Jeremy Renner one is fine with me.
I think you raise up a really good point, too, about the fact that just because they're starting to write this script and writing it focusing on the Alex Cross character, that doesn't mean they're probably not going to leave some back doors in it where they could write in a Matt Damon character if they can get to that point. So I don't think it's I agree with you, Dennis. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he won't be there. I just think it's unlikely.
Yeah.
Even if he was in the movie, would we want to see a lot of him or just a little bit of intertwining of the two characters?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, because there's a part of me, the fanboy in me, would like to see Matt Damon and Jason Cross and Alex Cross teaming up, kicking all kinds of ass, doing all that kind of stuff. That would be great. But would that really be best as far as narrative goes? Or would it be best if they were kind of separate? Maybe just have a Matt Damon cameo. Maybe they just cameo him to set up a 6th Bourne movie. I don't know which would be the way to. Like I said, though, my gut fanboy instincts is like, let's see them on screen together, killing tons of terrorists at the same time. But maybe that's not the best idea. What do you think, Dennis?
Narratively, it's kind of tricky. You have to make it make sense and make it not too cheesy. Tony Gilroy, he wrote the Bourne movies and he directed the last one, the Bourne Legacy one. I think he could pull it off, so I'm not too worried about that.
All right.
Well, let's move on to our next story of the day. So the new Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg film Two Guns had a solid opening weekend at the box office, taking the #1 spot with just over $27 million. Now, The Wolverine came in second place with over $21 million. Smurfs 2 took third with $18 million. The Conjuring continued its smash hit run with another $13 million, bringing its worldwide total to $137 million on just a $20 million budget. That's amazing. And rounding out the top 5 was Despicable Me 2, making another $10 million, bringing its worldwide total up to a staggering $713 million. So, Dennis, I have to know what stands out the most to you about this weekend's box office results.
For me, it's actually Two Guns. It didn't have a huge opening, but it was solid. To me, it says, while star power isn't like it was back in the 90s and 80s, where stars alone could make movies super profitable, it shows that like when you put two well-known and well-liked big actors like Denzel Washington and Mark Wahlberg, that you can still draw in a crowd. 27 million's not amazing, but it's solid for a movie that cost about $60 million to make. And I know that if that movie did not have those two in it, like no one would have, I don't think anyone would have seen it, judging just from the trailers. I think that was definitely all star based. So that's what sticks out to me.
The thing that really stands out the most is the whole Despicable Me 2 numbers. I remember I kind of choked on the water I was drinking a little bit when I first read that numbers. It has so quietly gone on to make over $700 million worldwide. Wrap your head around that for a second. $700 million worldwide. That makes it in the conversation of, not necessarily not in the top 10, but in like one of the top grossing films of all time. That's a huge number. And it's only going to get bigger. Like it's slowed down quite a bit now because it's been in theaters for a number of weeks, but it's probably going to finish around the $750 million mark. That is staggering. That is going to make it one of the top grossing movies of the year. And it's not one that we've really talked about a lot or think about it in those terms. So to me, that's the biggest thing that stands out to me.
Yeah, that's definitely amazing. But
Yeah.
for me, it's The Conjuring. I love that film. I thought it was so well done. I thought it really brought an element of class back to the horror genre.
Yeah.
And the fact it was made on such a low budget. And how often do you see horror films really kill at the box office when you're competing with all of these summer blockbusters? It doesn't happen that often. So for The Conjuring to come in there and really surprise everyone with these numbers, I think it's great. And it's a fantastic movie. So I'm really happy to hear that news.
Especially for such a tiny production budget.
Exactly.
All right, folks, well, we've reached that part of the show for Buy and Sell. Here's how this works. In front of her, Erin's got a bunch of other items in the world of movie news. She's going to run them down, and then Dennison and I are simply going to say whether we buy it or sell it. So, Erin, what do we got?
All right, here we go. So ever since Christopher Nolan's Batman franchise ended, one of the names that keeps coming up for the role of the Dark Knight is Armie Hammer. Now, Hammer recently appeared on the big screen as the Lone Ranger and was originally cast to play Batman in the canceled George Miller Justice League just a few years ago. Now, however, Hammer is now claiming he has no interest in playing Batman, saying the following: "I'm not actually a big fan of superhero films. If you have a guy who's supposed to be invulnerable, then what's the point?" So, John, buy or sell Hammer's lack of interest in playing Batman?
Okay, I said this type of thing before, I'll say it again. When an actor says, especially when it comes to a franchise like Batman, "I'm not really interested in playing Batman," what the real literal translation is, they're not asking me to play Batman. That's what that means. Because of course he'd want to play Batman. Of course he would want to take on one of the biggest roles, most coveted roles in Hollywood. Of course. And don't give me this line, Armie. Look, I've talked on this show quite a bit that I am an Armie Hammer fan. He has not been in a great movie yet, but I see his, Social Network, obviously, but I've seen his acting and think, you know what? The problem with all the movies that he's in has nothing to do with him. A lot of like Ryan Reynolds quite often. Like Ryan Reynolds has been a bunch of stinkers, but really when you sit down and watch his performance, he's never the problem. The problem with all of Armie Hammer's films, like The Lone Ranger, isn't Armie Hammer. He's actually a pretty good actor. I'm a fan of Armie Hammer. But I'm sorry, dude. You don't get to come out here and say, "Nah, I don't want to play a superhero. What's the point in having a character who's like superpower? That's not interesting." Dude, you already accepted playing the role of Batman. a number of years ago, lest you forget, and lest you hope that we forget. Also, don't make really stupid comments like that when you're talking about one of the most popular film genres going around today. There's a reason these movies make billions and billions and billions of dollars. So you don't want to come out there and start making comments like that that's going to tick a lot of this fan base off. I'm going to include myself in that. And also, please don't pretend that, oh yeah, no, I'm just not interested. Because we all know all that really means is that you weren't offered the job. That's what it means. And now you're passing it off. So, dude, just stay quiet. I'm a fan of yours. Don't make stupid PR mistakes like this, because this was a very, very idiotic thing to say. Dennis, how do you see it?
Yeah, I have to sell this as well. I mean, it's one of those situations, kind of like the Johnny Depp retiring thing, where it's a bruised ego. You know, he just was in Lone Ranger, it bombed, and now he's like, if you watch Lone Ranger, which I did, like Lone Ranger character, while not a superhero, it has elements of that. You know, where he's kind of doing some fantastical things, and it's kind of like, I mean, Batman doesn't actually have any powers. You know, so it's not that far off, and I think it's one of those situations where, yeah, he's like more upset over his last movie than he is about like actually thinking that the superhero genre sucks. Yeah, I think it's a bad move on his part, and yeah, I have to sell it.
Agreed.
You guys, I thought this was so stupid. I was just laughing when I was reading that quote. I could barely get through it. I can't believe that he said that. I personally am not a big fan of Armie Hammer. I think he's talented, and I think he'll grow into his talent. But to me, he's kind of green, and he's not a leading man yet. So I never really wanted to see him as a Batman personally. But saying something like this, I think, is really dumb, and he's shooting himself in the foot. And who doesn't want to be a part of these huge franchises that are making money, that are building fan bases? There are people coming out. You're coming to see them in theaters. People didn't come to see The Lone Ranger. Sorry, Armie. I really think that this is just such a bad thing for him to say, and a really bad PR move.
Yep, really stupid.
So on to the next. One of the biggest surprise hits of 2012 was the found footage film Chronicle. Now, Chronicle was made for a mere $12 million and made over $127 million at the worldwide box office. Since that time, Fox has been intent on getting a sequel made, but without director Josh Trank, who's currently working on the new Fantastic Four reboot, and without writer Max Landis. Now, apparently the film will also be without one of the stars, Dane DeHaan, who recently confirmed he knows nothing about the new film and hasn't been contacted about it at all. So, Dennis, buy or sell Dane DeHaan not being involved in the next Chronicle movie?
While I thought Chronicle was a really good movie and Dane DeHaan was actually one of the best things about the movie, I do buy that he's not going to be in Chronicle 2. I mean, his character died, so I just don't see any reason to bring him back. But I actually have to sell, not the idea of Chronicle 2, but just Chronicle 2 without Josh Trank, Max Landis. And, you know, I feel like those two were the ones that were like creatively behind this movie, and now having a sequel without either one of them, I have to sell that.
Yeah, I got to sell this too, and I'm going to actually sell not having Dane DeHaan there, because one of the things that one of the rumors, and I should emphasize that rumor, that was one of the big contentious points between Max Landis and Fox, was that Max Landis wanted to write the continuation of the story. Fox just wanted another Chronicle, like another group of kids that stumble upon something, basically just repeat the same formula. And that's not what Max Landis wanted to do. Now, whether those rumors are true, we'll find out when the new film comes out, because obviously Max Landis isn't a part of it. But I thought, when I saw Chronicle, to me, the whole movie felt like the origin story of a supervillain. That's what it felt like to me. And understanding the powers, spoiler everybody if you haven't seen it, but tough. Understanding the powers that Dane DeHaan had, okay, he got lanced with a street pole, I think it was, or some kind of statues, whatever. Big pole went right through him. I think he can survive that, and I think he comes back, and it would feel like it would make sense for the continuation of the story and following through on the origin of that villain. And the fact that he's not going to be there, on top of the rumors about why Max Landis is gone, it really makes me fearful that Fox is just going to repeat the same formula and not continue the story. And for me, that makes it a sell.
Yeah, how talented is Dane DeHaan, by the way?
Amazing.
I think we're going to see a lot of him in the future. He is so great, and I would love to see more of his work. And
Can't
it's
wait
too
to see
bad.
him in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Can't wait to see him in that.
He's going to be
He's gonna
great.
in that.
So do you guys remember a short while ago when Paramount was set to go into production on a Max Steel film with Twilight star Taylor Lautner in the lead role? Well, Lautner walked away from that project some time ago, but now reports have come out that a new production company has picked the project up and is moving forward with a Max Steel movie. Max Steel is the ultimate aspirational teen hero with a secret. Now, the story revolves around the trials and tribulations of a teenage boy named Maxwell McGrath and his out-of-this-world alien companion, Steel. Both have super strengths and powers. Max with turbo energy and Steel with alien intellect. When they combine forces to create Max Steel, the ultimate superhero is unleashed. So, John, are we going to buy or sell a Max Steel movie?
Oddly enough, I'm going to buy it. I mean, this sounds silly, and normally I'm the guy who poo-poos on the whole idea of a certain, niche cartoon that really nobody watches but has a little audience. Well, but really, this sounds like a formula that could work in a big motion picture, especially if you target it at the right demographic. Granted, it would be a younger demographic, but it sounds to me like something that could actually work and maybe play itself out on screen pretty well. And look, I'm not going to take lots of flack for saying this. Fine. I don't care. I think Taylor Lautner would have been good for the role. I really do. And I actually legitimately think, look, get over the whole, he's in Twilight, therefore anything that touches Twilight sucks. Just get over that, okay? Taylor Lautner, I think, has some potential. I'm not saying to be a great actor, but I think he could be a legit action star. He's a legit martial artist. He's got a great look, great physique. He's really good at action. Even that movie he did recently that didn't work out so well, Abducted. The action scenes in that film actually looked pretty good. I think he could be good for a role like this. Obviously, he's not going to be there now, but yeah, overall, color me interested. I'll take a buy on Max Steel. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to sell it. I mean, I guess maybe because I was, born and raised before Max Steel was popular. I just don't know too much about it, and I don't know how popular it is. It definitely came after when I was younger, watching Transformers and G.I. Joe and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't know. The premise sounds okay. It definitely could make some money if it's targeted towards like a younger, like Nickelodeon type of crowd, Disney Channel crowd. But for me, yeah, I have to sell it.
All right.
Well, John, I have to say I'm really glad that you think highly of Taylor Lautner, because so do I.
I do.
And I think he could be a very talented action star as well. And I've said that before publicly and gotten skewered in the comments because of his Twilight affiliation.
It's
but
true.
Twilight or not, I think that he definitely has a bright future as an action star, or at least has potential to. Our next topic, here we go. While chances of Pacific Rim's sequel remain extremely slim, that hasn't stopped one of the stars of the film, Charlie Day, from answering questions about where the sequel might go if it ever happens. When recently asked about where the film and his character specifically would go, Day said the following. I remember when I first met with him, Del Toro, that he liked the idea of Newt becoming a bit of a villain in the second film, Day said. But I think over the course of making the film and the way the character resonated with the audience, I don't think he would want to turn him into a villain now, but I really have no idea. Guillermo is one of those guys that his mind is so active that he might actually have an idea about something and then it's a completely different idea 5 minutes later. So, Dennis, buy or sell the idea of Newt becoming a villain in the next Pacific Rim movie?
I have to sell it. I have to sell it for two reasons. One, I'm just not going to buy Charlie Day as the villain. It'd be too comedic for me. And then two, there really doesn't need to be like a human villain. The villains are the kaiju, They are the thing that we're supposed to stop. So, just having like some sort of side thing, I don't think it would work. So, yeah, I don't like that idea.
I'm gonna buy this, and I'm gonna buy it for a couple of reasons. I think number one, the real villains of Pacific Rim are the alien race, whoever they are, that are sending the kaiju through. And I think they opened up a very interesting plot line with the whole mental link. They used to call it the neural bridge, but the mental handshake, when Charlie Day linked up with the hive mind, if you will, of the kaiju and could see everything, and they also saw him. And I think there's an interesting storyline you could follow about that now taking its toll on him or affecting him in certain ways. And remember, he was always kind of set up as a kaiju groupie in the first place. So while I don't really think it's what they would do, and I do agree with Dennis about the whole idea about they just kind of set up Charlie Day's character as a little too meek and a little too comedic. But maybe those things could just increase his potentials as for a little bit of villainy. So yeah, overall, even though the sequel's not going to happen, unfortunately, because the movie rocks and you should all go out and see it, I'm going to buy it.
I'd buy it too. I think he could make a great mad scientist. And that's the kind of character I like to see. And I think there are comedic elements in a mad scientist type of guy. And I think he could nail it if he really worked on getting a little bit diabolical with it.
Agreed. Okay, folks. Well, listen, we've reached that part of the show called Mailbag. If you've got a topic or a question you'd like us to address on the show, you can email them to us anytime at amcmovietalk@gmail.com. Now, look, we get literally over 1,000 emails every week, and we only have time overall to get to about 30 or 40 of them. So please don't be upset if we don't get to your question. Trust me, we go through all of them, and we get as many as we can. So right now, Aaron's got a couple of messages pulled out of the mailbag. So Aaron, what do we got?
Well, first of all, we have a question from Tellus Avery, who writes saying, why is there such a debate about who should play the next Batman? Every time I hear a name as a contender for the next Batman, it's a joke. None of these actors have extensive martial arts background. Bale's Batman was obviously no martial artist and would get his ass handed to him by Cavill's Superman. Batman is considered to be one of the top fighters in the DC universe, knowing many different fighting styles. The only logical choice I see is Scott Adkins. He has the look of Bruce Wayne and the skill of Batman. What do you think?
Well, you raised several important points that I myself have raised before. That Batman needs to be a real physical presence. He needs to be a great fighter, all that kind of stuff. I mean, and Scott Adkins, the dude is a legit beast. He's huge. He's physical. He's got a great look. He is beyond a legit martial artist. He is the real deal when you're thinking about the physical prototype to play a role like Batman. And all that is great, and I'm with you on that. And look, I've gotten a lot of emails in the mailbag, on my Facebook page, on Twitter, all that kind of stuff, over the past couple of weeks about a lot of people have been pushing this idea of Scott Adkins. Because he is that. He's everything you want Batman to be. Absolutely. Here's the problem, though. You have to start with somebody who can act. Because at the end of the day, whoever's playing Batman has to do a lot more acting than they have to do action scenes. Now, I know a lot of people will say to me and have said to me, no, Scott is great in all these movies. Let's not kid ourselves. I've seen Scott in a whole bunch of small roles. Obviously, that's what his bread and butter is, because he's more of a physical presence. I have yet to see anything that comes close to convincing me that Scott Adkins can carry a major motion picture. Forget the action, forget the martial arts, put all that aside for a second. Scott Adkins has showed me nothing yet that even comes close to suggesting he can carry a motion picture on his shoulders, especially in an iconic role like Batman. Now, I agree with you that we want the Batman to be a lot more physical, have some fighting skills, all that kind of stuff. That's what we want in the next actor. I'm included in that. But I like I said, the problem with Adkins is you got to start with the actor and then go on to the other elements. And when you're starting with the acting part, Adkins for me falls off the list right away, unfortunately. But I'm with you as far as everything that you've said. I just believe on that first most important point, he gets disqualified before we even get to the physical stuff. Dennis, am I wrong? Like, how do you see it?
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I haven't really seen Scott Adkins in much. I did see him in, he was in Expendables 2. I remember kept referring to him as like the ethnic Ben Affleck in that movie. But yeah, you have to start with the acting because it's easier to get someone who can teach someone, or not teach someone that already can act and teach them how to do the physical stuff and use movie magic to cheat around to make them look like they know what they're doing versus the other way around. You can get someone that can do all the physical stuff, but teaching them how to act and carry a movie, that's a whole nother thing. That is something that you can't use movie magic to like fix. So in that regards, I also haven't seen much of his, so I don't think that's a good idea. I think you start with the actor, you get that actor and build him up, make him bulky and teach him all this stuff. That's a better way to go than the opposite way.
Yeah, see, and I want to get somebody. That's why I've always been a proponent of Jason Momoa. I think he's a better actor than people give him credit for, and he's got all the physical presence, and he's got, now, I don't think he will because I think they're going for an older Batman now, but I love the idea of what the Tellus is asking, saying, look, let's get somebody who can do all these things. I agree. Let's get somebody who you don't have to teach that much to, who can already step in front of the camera and pull off this choreography, and who can be physically threatening and you know, imposing. I agree with all that. It's just, you got to start with the actor. And as far as the other thing that Tellus mentioned, you know, you're right. The way Christian Bale fought in the Christopher Nolan Batman things, you think, okay, no way could he go toe to toe with Superman. But let's keep in mind, you could be Sho Kasagi. You could be the ultimate ninja the planet has ever seen, and you cannot go toe to toe with Superman. It doesn't matter how good your Taekwondo is, or your Jiu-Jitsu, or any of that stuff. It don't matter. You're fighting Superman. So there's going to be other elements that come into play there that will convince us that he can fight Superman. But yeah, I think both of us agree. Can't really see Atkins as it.
I kind of agree with you guys too, but I do think that he looks like a Bruce Wayne and can fight like a Batman, and I like those two aspects. I haven't seen a lot of him, so don't really know if he has the ability to really pull off that role, but he has those two things going for him.
Absolutely,
that's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right, so here's our last question of the day. Alag writes, "Hey AMC Movie Talk crew, I love the show and I'm addicted. My question is, with the box office failure Pacific Rim, which is my favorite summer movie this year, the chances of a sequel are practically none like John said, but I was wondering if the studio drops the rights to Pacific Rim, could another studio pick it up and develop a sequel like they did with the Dumb and Dumber franchise? Thanks, and I can't wait to hear your thoughts."
You know what? You actually raise a very interesting point that a lot of people, including myself, haven't really considered. Look, when he's referring to Dumb and Dumber, what he's talking about is that Warner Brothers, they were developing Dumb and Dumber for a long time and trying to get it going, blah, blah, and then ultimately they just dropped it. They said, you know what, forget it. We're dropping the Dumb and Dumber 2 sequel. And then in swooped Universal, I believe it's Universal, correct me if I'm wrong, Dennis, but in swooped Universal, say, that's fine, we'll do it. We'll pick it up and we'll do the rights to it. In theory, if a Pacific Rim did not get developed and Warner Brothers wanted to drop the rights to it, I think in theory, a Fox or a Universal or a Disney even, oddly enough, I think Pacific Rim would fit into Disney's wheelhouse very comfortably, could sweep in, pick it up, and develop it. But, and this is the huge but, who would want to? Who would want to step in? It's like, hey, I've got this house here, and if you buy it from me, you are guaranteed to lose, $50 million. You want to buy it? No, you don't want to buy it because you'd still have to pay to make the next movie. And if anything, if history is any indication, then making another Pacific Rim movie for $200 million is probably going to lose you money. So it's a very interesting question, and I believe the answer is yes. If Warner Brothers decides not to move forward, and if, I don't know how their particular rights works with this particular movie franchise, but in theory, they drop the rights to them and just let them go or sell them off, another studio could come in and do it. The big problem, though, is, as I see it, is that the question is who would want to? Who would want to come in and pick up a movie that has lost its existing studio almost $100 million? It's not a very attractive car to sell. Dennis, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think the big difference is with Dumb and Dumber, you're talking about a very profitable movie. It was something that was very profitable, and so picking it up, and also it doesn't cost that much to make versus something like a Pacific Rim. It's mostly the star salary in Jim Carrey. And so with Pacific Rim, that's a much bigger gamble where you have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to maybe get a return. So I don't see any other studio picking up. If someone were to do it, I would see that maybe Legendary with their new deal with Universal, maybe somehow they convince Universal saying, look at all these international sales, we're going to make a lot of money. But even that, the chances are very slim.
All right, folks. Well, listen, that'll do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, while I've got you, take a second. Do us a favor. If you like this video, click that thumbs up button. It's just a good way of letting us know that you like the video and what we're doing here. Also, take a second and click the subscribe button. Become a subscriber to our AMC Movie News YouTube channel. It'll keep you up to date on everything going on in the world of movie news and, of course, our daily AMC Movie Talk show and our weekend AMC Mailbag show. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. Hey, listen, if you want an audio-only version of this episode, look in the description of this video and you'll find links to our iTunes and our Stitcher Radio. And listen, go on out and see a movie tonight. Head on over to www.amctheaters.com for your theater, showtime, and movie ticket information. I want to thank, as always, first of all, our lovely host, Miss Erin Darling. Erin, where can people find you online?
Twitter, Erin A. Darling, YouTube, Erin Ashley D, and Facebook, Erin Darling fan page. Thanks for having me, John.
Thank you for being had. The one and the only, the production manager for AMC Movie News, Mr. Dennis Zen. Dennis, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at ThinkHero, and you can find me on Facebook and just look up my name.
And you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, at John Campia. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. Really appreciate it. We cannot wait to see you again tomorrow. And until then, my name is John Campia for AMC Movie News. Bye-bye.